in the previous couple of years. So,
There you go. Sorry.
thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Steve.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Steve.
180, you have the budget that I first submitted a budget package that was, and my apologies, Steve and Peggy, I was late getting it in, and I know Steve took some heat for that, but it was my fault, and I apologize. Anyhow, I got the budget packet in, but then I went to the park board meeting this past week, and I wanted to give the board an opportunity because they seem to have been more engaged than ever before in our budgetary process, and so I wanted to give them some opportunity to provide some input. And so we looked at the budget, and I resubmitted additional packet information with those changes reflected from the Board of Park Commissioners, and I got it over to Peggy's office and to Steve's office. So I'm hoping that you're looking at the updated 180 budget, which you'll see some yellow highlights on regarding, I think this is the one you should have.
It should say revised, received 6.5 on top, I think, which you should be looking at.
And it wasn't very drastic regarding any major changes. One of the things that, as you well know, when we were going through the budgetary process, I think one of the big ticket items here is that dealing with the department's fund balance. And we had the meetings previously this year, Judge, in your conference room with those that were in attendance, looking at the department's fund balance, and we had went into a planning session, and I have two board members with me, Janie Bell and Gary Kemp, so if you...
For being here.
Anything you want to jump in and add, feel free to do so. But we went into a planning session last December, and in the planning session, we were looking at not so much our operating budget, but we were looking at what we had regarding funding sources to be able to do some strategic planning to reinvest back in the facilities and operations at the department. We were looking at the CIAP funds. We were looking at the RTA funds. We were looking at Road District 4 funds, and then we were looking at a portion of our fund balance. And so we went through this strategy of deciding, okay, what can we do that's going to reinvest into the department that's going to give us an actual quantifiable return on our investment? Because, as you well know, we approach this as running a full-fledged for-profit business. We're trying to get a return on that investment, and the more money we make, the less burden we are on the tax dollar and the less burden we are on the general fund. And I think, if you watch the trends over the past, going into the fourth year, you see what's happening with our revenue and even our expenses. We've got a good performance record so far as getting a return on that investment. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at those projects, one of those projects, i.e. being the Briscoe King Pavilion, knowing that it would be the only 4,000 square foot conference facility multi-purpose building on the island, knowing that we wanted to look at, I'm just bringing you up to speed with some history here, knowing we wanted to remodel the kitchen in the piers, in the pier concessionaire areas, because if you've ever been up there, why in the world they built a kitchen and put it on the side of the ocean is beyond me. I wasn't here at the time, but it didn't make much sense. So we wanted to do that. We also were looking at, we know we've got some major growth coming on North Padre Island, and making renovations to the RV park facilities, RV camping facilities, and that at I.B. McGee. So we were looking at all these things, and we were trying to prioritize them. And when we were prioritizing them, we were looking at the funding sources. So what we ended up doing, as we were trying to, and we gained a lot of knowledge. Thank you, Judge and Steve, for those meetings that we had, especially dealing on the fund balance, because it really helped us to see how that part of the budget works. When we went, as we were working through that process, we had earmarked, before we knew what we knew, about $300,000 of the fund balance we wanted to take and put back into the department. So when you look at this budget, one of the things I did not know how to reflect, other than the increases I have presented to you, we didn't know how to reflect encumbering a portion of our fund balance. Now, I went back and looking at the official report that Peggy presented earlier this year on the closing out of last year's fiscal budget. I'm looking at what the actual amounts and variance with final budget favorable regarding our fund balance. So what I did, just so you know, is I met with the board and I went back and I pulled this document to see, okay, where is our fund balance actually at? And then what do we need that could be a substantial reinvestment back into the assets of the department? Because there again, remember, we're trying to monetize every asset we have. And what would I need in lieu of some other things that are happening on the peripheral out here with funding sources and other issues? What would I need to make a substantial investment back into the department? And not in operating, but in facilities. And so I earmarked not only the existing 150 that was put into contingency appropriations, but requesting another 450 to round that up to 600,000. And that would say, okay, if my fund balance is $1,443,003, then I would like to be able to take 600,000 of my fund balance and use it for capital improvements in the department that we know are going to give us a substantial return on our investment. That being said, one of the things that I wasn't provided with this year that I had been in the past was, what do I expect my revenues to be next year? So what I did, if you look at the justification narrative on the budget, I went in and gave you a little blurb on, all the increases that I'm asking for. And then I went back and on the budget narrative, I said, okay, this represents a 3% funding increase is what it represents from our last year's funding level of budget. And, excuse me, and we're estimating in revenues, this is a very conservative estimate, and I'll tell you how I got there. For 12-13, an additional $75,600 in revenues. Then that's just, if we do the Briscoe King Pavilion and we renovate that, and I average my current volume of use right now that I have that's quantifiable on the books year after year, proven, factual, and I can hold 52 meetings next fiscal year, that's the additional revenue we're gonna come up with after renovating Briscoe King Pavilion. So it's very conservative, and that is saying, okay, if I do one meeting a week, because right now the facility, it's accommodating, but it's not that appealing to the business industry market as far as hosting a full-fledged meeting venue there during the week, because it's not climate controlled. And so if I had a meeting there and I could do one a week, 52 weeks a year, this is what would get me there. Now that's an average. Sometimes there may be 4 or 5 this month or what have you, but that's very conservative. And we know from communication from specific board members that are involved in the community in North Padre Island, and communication I've had with the country club out there, which is closing down to make room for Schlitterbahn, and discussion with the hotel industry out there, we're the go-to meeting venue. There's not another one like that out there. And so they're already discussing with us, bringing in their guests and their meetings and hosting those meeting spaces or meeting conferences at Briscoe King Pavilion. We don't have a price point, because it's going to have to be a sliding scale for different groups, nonprofits, youth groups, things like that. We don't have that narrowed down yet. But we know if we can pull this off and get this done, then at a bare minimum, this is the amount of revenue we're going to see coming into the department. And when we talk about revenue, I just want to point out that if you look, again, and you really look at the budgets, and I know I know Peggy does this, but I encourage you, if you look at the revenue trend that we've had since May of 2009, we have consistently exceeded all revenue projections. I remember last year, a lot of people thought I was full of piss and vinegar, but I knew I was going to break $1 million. And there are some people in this room, I told it, and I was like, we're going to make it. We're going to get past $1 million. And we did. And we exceeded our own revenue that we generated. We exceeded $1 million by $24,054. And I think right now, we are 7%. Now, if you look at the BITEC system, they right now when you run the report, they don't have April and May's revenues in there. We go back to our bank statements to pull the actual deposits, the monthly reports that we're doing that we turn into Peggy's office. If you look at our revenues right now, according to every monthly deposit that we put in, we are 7% above where we were the same time last year. And still going. We've got a lot of momentum. And that's taken into consideration. PJ's is not operating anymore. We closed that down because we got a grant out there we're trying to make improvements. That also taken into consideration, we closed the pier down for several months to make improvements for Hurricane Ike repairs. That's also, we closed down Briscoe King Pavilion for the month of December, January, February, March, and April, trying to get that let out and get that project done. And this is really important, and that's even working with the hiring freeze and the staff reductions that we've had, and working with, my clerk positions have been at 50%, and we're doing it, and we're doing a good job of it. So I tell you all that because it's really important. I guess this is my time to sell you on the idea that we need to reinvest back in the department, and this budget reflects that of reinvesting back in the department as far as some increases in some of these line items, but I didn't reflect the encumbering some of the fund balance as an operating expense. I didn't know how to really work with this. Working with Joe Wilson, who's on our board, and as a CPA, he thought that we should list it as not so much an operating expense because it's our money, so to speak. It's taxpayer dollars, but it's our money. We've worked hard at doing good fiscal accountability, and we've built this fund balance over here. Now we want to take and use it, but the rest of these things are real, true operating expenses. So it is listed in the budget justification, but it's not listed there where y'all had 150 in contingency. Now understand, we're not going to use that contingency this year. We have no intentions of using that. And if you look at the language on last year's budget, it had to have commissioner's approval to use it, and it was only available if we exceeded revenue projections for 10-11, which we're in 11-12, and that kind of threw me off. But we did. We exceeded revenue projections in 10-11. So, but we're not going to use it. It actually came from our fund balance. We don't want to use it. We're not going to. Another thing, we have some things that are happening out there that we need to be prepared for, and I don't have the answers right now. We've got this interlocal that we're trying to look at working with the city of Corpus Christi. If we can work a deal, and right now where we're at dollar figures, I think they can do just as much, if not more, for less. They think they can do just as much, not anymore, for more. And so, I went to them and I very openly said, look, I'm a steward of the county tax dollars, and I have to challenge you to spend those wisely. And if I can negotiate with you for a better price point and create a cost savings, my idea is to create a cost savings, because if I create a cost savings, then instead of that cost savings just going away, now I have some resources, whether it be manpower or fiscal monies, that I can reallocate back into the department somewhere where we're actually making money. We only get, I think, 16% of every one of those beach parking stickers that are sold out there. But per capita, we have the most volume and the most impact. It's really not a balanced system. When they came up with it, they just said, okay, based on linear feet of beach, this is what we're going to give you. And I don't think we're ever going to argue, that's going to be a point we could always argue, but we're not going to win there. So looking at that, I'm thinking that if we get this interlocal deal done, this is going to impact our budget. If we get the interlocal done with them, I can do it for $400 more per tenth of a mile than what we pay Port Aransas. And why would I pay them more? Because they've included trash service in that interlocal. And just do it for Newport Beach. Not do it for everything else, just do it for Newport right now and see how the spirit of cooperation goes. But if that does go down, there again, I listed interlocal there and I highlighted it. I will make this commitment to you, we will not go into that unless I can substantially find other areas that I can cut and make it balance. So that at 13,300 per tenth of a mile times 0.79 tenths of a mile, it comes up to, I think, $133,000. And so, $105,000. It comes up to $105,000 and some change. We would have to make cuts. I've already identified some cuts in talking with Steve that we would make that would get us about 80% there. Finding the other 20% would not be difficult. But there again, just you're seeing that there. So that's something out there. But when that happens, what that's going to do, it's going to create a situation in the department that we're going to have to look at some restructuring, some reorganization, and it doesn't necessarily have to cost anything. We got to look at it. And if the RFP for IB McGee that we have out there on the streets, if that goes, we're going to end up creating another opportunity to really evaluate how we're structured, what we need, what we don't need, because we're unique in this county in that we're in the true travel and tourism industry. We have people coming to us. We're a vacation destination and wanting to stay overnight with us for extended periods of time. And when you go on vacation, you go somewhere, think about that. And we want to rise to the top and be number one in customer choice with our services and what we provide. So, and the more successful I am at doing that, the more successful the county budget is because we're making more money. There is also there's some things in here that, like for instance, on salary, on overtime, every year, undoubtedly, $7,500 does not get me there. I have to look at other budget line items where I may have some excess that I haven't used and do a line item transfer, submit it to Peggy's office to cover overtime. We're just never going to get away from it. Staffing knows offices. The only day that we're closed throughout the whole year is Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day. And they used to not do that until I came on board, and I said, no, we got to close. If these RV campers can't understand that, we do have people on call that come out and check the restrooms, but those are the only 2 days of the year that we're closed. Well, you're on a 3-day weekend, we're out there working. And we're not complaining. We know that. That's the nature of the business. So we're not going to get away from that. I did put some merit salary increases in here for my employees. I think and I'm talking merit. Not cost of living, merit. These guys that are out there really busting their hump. And one of those does happen to be and I may not have communicated it very clear in my budget narrative, Peggy and Steve, but one of those does happen to be a reclassification. One of the things I struggle with, and Peggy can testify to this, is that I don't have good segregation of duties out there when it comes to best management practices in fiscal accountability. I just don't have the staff. I've been working with Prone and Trigger to implement an internal auditing system. Doesn't circumvent the official auditing biotech system with Peggy. She's aware that we've been doing this. We got point of sale. We got campground master. I think I've done everything I can to make us as bulletproof as possible when it comes to fiscal management, and even whether it's an internal audit or an external audit. I feel real good about where I have this department and the county. You're safe with all cash management, because you got to look at, over $1 million coming in and out of those offices. We've got to be on top of our game. Well, I've got, it's real hard at my current staffing level to separate accounts payable and accounts receivable. I just can't do it. But even though that could be a finding, I am real comfortable with the controls that we have in place that you can sleep well at night. And so of that 12,732, that includes, that's taking care of 5 people. That includes reclassifying an individual to a senior accounting assistant, which was a previous job description that existed in the department some time back. But I just point that out. I mean, we're taking care of 5 remarkable individuals in that department who helped to make me successful. I couldn't do it without them. You've got other personnel expenses. I threw that in there just as a contingency there again. We've shown excellent fiscal responsibility. And when I have unforeseen circumstances that happen with staffing and personnel, and I can't, find anybody at a county temp, then I have to go out to the Advanced Temporary Services, which is one who has a contract right now. That's what that's there for. Only in an emergency situation. We found ourselves in that situation right now, but I've actually, because of the staffing issue, we had to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and we did that. We had to rearrange office hours, closing offices early, which is fine. That still allows us to give the best customer service we can provide, but it does have an impact. That means that person coming in at a certain time, at a certain day, can't procure that product or that service because we're not open. So it does impact your bottom line. That's only there as a contingency. Office expenses, you see that's up 4,000. That's mainly because of the cleaning supplies that we're having to use because of the volume. We're busier this year than we have been in the last 3 or 4 years, and I guess once these fuel prices go up, people start vacationing at home more. I guess it's been remarkable, and just the growth on the island out there. Non-capital outlay, I didn't have anything there last year. I just threw something in there. And professional services, that 21,000 there, in addition to the 52, with our core permit that we have to do a habitat monitoring along the beach, and that's above and beyond looking for turtles. Anyhow, that is what it would cost the first initial year, and I've got to do it for 5 years. That is relatively cheaper than our counterparts at the City of Port A and the City of Corpus Christi, because I am working with an environmental engineer, and I negotiated with them with my degree background, if I can help you compile some of this data and do some more of the work, would it reduce the cost to the county? And they said yes. So that's much cheaper than what we would get if we just went to an engineering firm out there and said, here you go, here's my habitat monitoring I'm required to do by the Corps, give me a plan. So we're going to have to do that.
Is that something new, Scott?
Yes. Yes, it's something brand new. Well, it's new because of the Corps permit that was issued to us.
So it's $21,000 a year.
No, it'd be $21,000 the first year, then it'll drop to 18 subsequent years after that. And that is, you got to go out and you got to do transects and survey to assess whether you're having an impact on the beach profile from doing beach maintenance and maintaining the roadway. You've got to do popping plover habitat monitoring. In other words, you got to go out there and count birds. You've got to develop an annual turtle plan. You need to compile the data in that turtle plan, looking at current trends and issues regarding their reproductive cycle, and how they're coming up on the beach. And we did have 2 turtles come up this year on our beach and nest, and tried to push them back out in the water, but it didn't work. No, yeah.
Remember, this is being recorded.
Oh, but that was the joke. Anyhow.
I wanted to make sure we clarified that.
That along with that vinegar.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Is this involuntary, this?
Yes, if we want, by acceptance of the Corps permit, if we're going to do any kind of beach maintenance at all, we're required to do habitat monitoring and submit an annual report.
Do you
No.
have a document that explains exactly what our requirements are under that?
Yes,
Okay, could I get a copy of that?
you sure may.
Okay,
You sure may.
yes, whenever you have a chance.
Okay. I'll email it over to you. We're required to do habitat monitoring, submit an annual plan of our habitat monitoring, and submit an annual total monitoring plan. So some of this stuff, I can help them work out. It's not, all of it's not rocket science.
So what do you mean by core permitting? Selling beach parking stickers?
No, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, when we decide that we want to do, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, 4 years ago, it's been 4 years in the making getting this permit. They started going to different government bodies, whether they be municipalities or counties, up and down the Texas coast, coastal political subdivisions, and said, okay, if you're out there and you're using heavy equipment on the beach under Section 7 official consultation regarding the Threatened and Endangered Species Act, which is monitored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, you have to have a permit. We've got to permit and regulate what you're doing as far as beach maintenance and its impact on threatened and endangered species and the habitat thereof. So it gets tricky because the Corps doesn't have a lot of pushback when everything gets thrown under this Section 7 consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the Federal Threatened and Endangered Species Act. So as a result, the Corps says, okay, we want you to get a permit and we want you to list out what it is that you're exactly going to do. We do it. That goes on the Texas Registry and it goes out for agency comment and non-agency comment. Usually, you don't get a lot of non-agency comment. There are a couple individuals, one on North Padre, one in Port Aransas, who will render comments sometimes as individuals. But then you get Texas Parks and Wildlife, TCEQ, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and
That's the information you're asking for, Commissioner, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
yeah. So then,
Park and Wildlife.
anyhow, so okay, so that's something we're going to have to comply with. I think I painted a pretty good picture of where we're at. The other thing, real quickly, because I know there are other people behind me. The other thing is that here are these things that are out there on the outside. Okay, we all know about CAP. Okay, right now we have $673,000 in CAP funds that I feel comfortable. I know the rest of you don't, but I feel comfortable. The glass is half full that we will see before the end of this fiscal year. The original CAP project that we submitted an application for was the Gulf Beach Observation Deck, which is the Bob Hall Pier expansion. That application for 2007 was approved at the state level, submitted in the state plan sent to BOMER when it was under BOMER. BOMER reviewed it, they approved the state plan, they approved the project, and they gave us an award. That year's award was $154,154. Of that, we actually went on to ASAP and drew down $73,000 of that money that was designed for engineering and design. The remainder, which is 83 or 84 something thousand, was for construction. They already approved the project. They awarded it. They awarded it based on engineering and construction. So, as subsequently, all of our 2008 and 9 and 10 award years have been submitted to reimburse us back for construction cost of an already approved project. The week before Memorial Day weekend, up till that Friday, I was back and forth with our contact up in Arlington, Virginia. I provided them with copious amounts of documentation, coordinating this with Roxy as well. That way her files are up to date. I have been on the phone, even Tom Kalman, who used to work for the GLO and now has retired and gone to work as a CAP liaison up in Austin. I've been speaking with him, and the last piece of documentation they needed was something to show that we had a Corps permit to build the pier expansion, so we were environmental compliance. And he felt this was the last thing that we needed, and we could draw down the remainder of our funds. I know that Willacy County, Kennedy County, and if I'm not mistaken, Cameron, have all just recently drawn down their funds. So it's happening. It's turning. We've got Todd Hunter's office talking with somebody in Austin, I don't know who, and I don't know who they're talking to in D.C., but we reached out to them because we were concerned because all these CAP funds, we know for a fact, we've got documentation that if these CAP funds aren't received by December 31st of 2012, there is some language from the Office of Management and Budgets, OMB, that U.S. Fish and Wildlife has targeted several $1 million of unencumbered CAP funds to do wetland restoration in the western part of the United States. So we thought that we were being pushed aside so that they could get their hands on this money, the old political two-step thing. So we started getting real active in making calls up there, and so things are happening. So we know we have that money coming. We know that we have just barely under $50,000 in RTA funds that are dedicated to I.B. McGee. We had another request to use $17,000 that I submitted to the commissioner. I think it's under approval. We had a pledge from you, Judge, for $75,000 of yours. That would give us a total of $167,000. I know where we're at. We're Grove District 4 funds. I know we've had those frozen right now because we have to finalize the FEMA reimbursement for the Hurricane Ike repairs before y'all are comfortable and let us have access to those funds. I think there's still a lot of work to do with Peggy's office to get that cleaned up.
Look forward to it.
And really, honestly, I don't think we've done our due diligence in helping her to get that resolved. To be honest with you, we got to get on top of that though, and I need to get Danielle involved, and so when we're looking at those funding sources, I'm bringing those up because we put all those into the schematic of things to look at how are we going to get where we're going to get, since not everything's in one nice neat little box.
However you do it, you got 4 minutes to do it in.
Okay. Well,
Can I ask some questions, please?
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The $7,000 increase in other personnel expense. Now, it's my understanding, Mr. Scott, that the county's policy is if you have a county vehicle, you don't get a car allowance in addition. So I'm not sure what this $7,000 is. Are you asking for additional car allowance or?
no, that's for contracting with temporary agency, like advanced temporary services. In the event that I was understaffed or had some, like I have right now, I've had some emergency circumstances, it would just be there if I ever needed it. Because remember, we zeroed that out based on getting rid of using temps. Y'all gave me 2 new FTEs last year. We zeroed that out. So that would just be there as a contingency, as an emergency situation.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you, Your Honor.
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm open for any more questions in the next 3.5 minutes. At the board, do y'all have anything you want to say?
I'll address the court.
Please. Thank you.
Joe Wilson, a new member on the County Parks Board. I just want the judge and the commissioners to know that we're really getting our money's worth with Scott.
Yes, you are.
He's a real go-getter, and whatever resources we give him, he's able to multiply them. And he probably could slow down a little bit in his presentation skills, because I know y'all drink from a fire hose up here of information, and Scott's a fire hose all by himself. But I just wanted to say we couldn't be any more pleased with the leadership that we have out there, and any monies that he's going to be money well spent, and Scott's going to make sure we get a good return on it. We need more people like him.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's really all I have. And as you work through this, Commissioners, Judge, Peggy, Steve, if you see somewhere that you can help me, but you need me to look at making adjustments, allow me an opportunity to be engaged in that, and I'll promise you I will do my best to always do more with less if I can. And I'll get in there and I'll find it. I'll find it. We'll make it happen.
Well, only comment I have, Judge, and I mentioned this to Scott yesterday, that by statute, the auditor is the one that has to do the estimates for his revenue. And so what she's done for you for general fund, she'll be doing for here, and then we'll have a better feel of what the projection is for what you're going to have going forward as far as assets for next year.
Okay?
But, yeah, and I just want to add, I'm not going to do that work in isolation, so I count on Scott's plans and his efforts and what his vision is. That will affect my estimates, no doubt. And I look forward to meeting with you to straighten out that CAP.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Scott, the entrepreneurial approach is fine. That's a good way to do it.
Thank you, sir.
It's a good way to do it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You say
Here,
that thing? Do I hear you say, and it's on?
Yeah.
It's saying that you're making more revenues, you have a chance to get more money from the revenues, or?
Sure.
So anybody that makes more revenues can ask for money from those revenues in your department?
Sure, we'll just reduce the other part of their budget. How that works.
Okay, so actually you're not making very
Yeah,
much.
that's how that works.
Okay, because I'm looking here also at number 158, 5880, it's the same thing, almost 5123, right?
Yes, it is. Contract personnel versus employees.
And I guess in the temps, and we got rid of the temps, and you want more money to hire temps through a temp company, might as well just go through our temp, through our office, I guess.
Well, I do, Commissioner. That is just, a lot of times, see, when I'm looking at hiring county clerks, for instance, they're temps, okay? I hire them through the clerk pool here. Sometimes it's very hard to find them that want to drive all the way out to the island. And well, like we've been in this situation before, we couldn't find any. We were searching and searching. I'm down 50% in my staff. All it is just putting money in there to go to the temp agency outside of the county just temporarily. Like I hired one for a couple weeks just to get me through a crunch. That was it. That's all it's for, is a contingency.
Yeah, we're having a hard time finding somebody to go out with Ulsa too, so I guess it's both ends of the county, so.
Well, we're losing. I think we're losing a lot of staff to the pay scale of Eagle Ford.
For sure, yeah, I agree.
But that's okay.
Thanks.
It's fun to work at the beach.
Yeah, obviously. Joe, thanks for coming in. I appreciate your comments. All of you. Your board's a very active board. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
You
Thanks,
bet, sir.
Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your madness on that.
Your Mike.
I think part of the method of the madness and the contingency appropriations, the substantial increase, which I think is right. I mean, once they pull the trigger on Schlitterbahn, I think we want to be prepared to make whatever improvements in our campground and some of those things to try to get ahead of the game, because I think there's going to be some people want to come down. They'll be doing a lot of camping, and right there at the Bob Hall Pier area, close to Schlitterbahn, I think is going to be a real attractive.
We're sitting on a gold mine.
So, I mean, but you want to be ready. You don't want to wait for them to get started and then have them open, and then we try to do something. We want to be ahead of the game, I think. So,
Well, it's an opportunity to make this county really shine, because you're going to have a big influx of people come in. Yes.
thanks.
Dismissed?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Go rest. Take a deep breath.
No more coffee, Scott. No more coffee.
Well, I get a little nervous still.
No more coffee.
You got it.
Good morning.
Appreciate his enthusiasm.
Oh, man. I want pointers, not sitters.